All right. So the Vikings have their Linval replacement in Michael Pierce, and it's a big one. Literally a big one. He comes in at 6 foot 340, and what he does really well is kind of what Linval did really well. He clogs holes and he eats double teams. He's able to kind of free up linebackers and other, pass rushers around him just because he can really condense and push the pocket if left alone. So he kind of puts people on skates that way. And it really allows, like I said, other players to kind of take an opportunity for themselves to kind of get the glory stats where these kind of linemen really don't get them. Minnesota signed him to a 3-year, $27 million deal with $18 million in guaranteed money. So average of $9 million a season. And just for comparison's sakes, Linval Joseph signed with the Chargers for $8.5 a year. So the benefits here, and it's because I know some would be like, well, that's more expensive. I thought we couldn't afford Linval. Well, part of the issue with Linval was he was regressing, and Pierce is 4 years younger, and he's only making $500,000 more on average per season. And Pierce, per the Pro Football Focus peoples, because I know we all love them, he's gotten at least an 80 run defense grade in 3 of the last 4 seasons, where Linval has kind of routinely been in the 70s. So it might be like a significant upgrade in that. Obviously, there's a scheme change here for Michael Pierce coming from a 34 to a 43, but at the same time, he might have been tasked with more being the nose tackle in that 34 defense. And there will be one thing I do feel like I need to talk about, despite the fact that a lot of this is kind of like maybe we're just getting kind of what we're used to in Michael Pierce from Linval Joseph, and instead of getting a disappointing Linval Joseph year like we kind of got last year, we might be getting back to the good thing that we're used to, or at least something similar to it with it. But one thing I feel like that really should be talked about is Michael Pierce last training camp and all that good stuff. He showed up to camp last year out of shape and nearly 400 pounds. So that's something that you kind of need to look at and kind of monitor closely, I would think. But I would think hopefully we can prevent that. And he did have a little bit of a down year because of this. But like I said, it's 3 out of 4 because, well, he came in out of shape. And ultimately, though, he's been a top nose tackle for a couple of years now, about 3 or 4 years for the most part. And Minnesota should be happy to have the guy, especially since this was a guy I really did want, but I didn't think Minnesota would find the money for. The guy I kind of tabbed as the real potential Linval replacement was actually Danny Shelton, who ends up going to a division rival in the Detroit Lions for $4 million a year, which is roughly what I thought he might go for. I was thinking probably somewhere between $3 and $6 million on average for Danny Shelton. Kind of comes in at 4, so that falls right in line. And I'm a little surprised that we can get Michael Pierce, because once again, if you can get a top nose tackle, you better do it, because these guys don't come around very often. It's hard to replace them in the draft. We could still potentially see a fairly early draft pick used on interior defensive linemen, just because this does fill that 0 tech spot, obviously, but that 3 tech spot, that interior pass rusher, still quite non-existent on the roster, although there's a few things right now that are non-existent on the roster, as is, virtue of, day 2 of free agency. So, happens. There's still plenty of moves that need to be made, and I'm sure there are plenty that will be made. Just a matter of time. And on paper, I do think this is kind of like one of the perfect replacements for Linval Joseph. But Linval will be missed. He was kind of a leader in the locker room, and he kind of took Danielle Hunter under his wing, and you had things like that. So obviously you lose that dynamic, which really kind of blows, but it is what it is. And the on-field production just didn't match the price anymore. So it is what it is, and the Chargers, for whatever they're thinking over there, with obviously paying a regressing Linval Joseph, they also had Brandon Mebane last year, who's about 35 or 36 years old, so they get an improvement over there with their nose tackle and Linval Joseph. So it's not all bad for everyone. It's actually pretty good for everyone. We both upgrade. Linval moves on. Minnesota moves on to things. And I would like to know your comments down below. Like and subscribing always helps. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.